the major aspect of the study, which is key findings, will be presented. Not all, but some of them, the key ones. And finally, one recommendation is there as to how we can use these findings. Next. Well, when it comes to the background of the assessment, I have next. Next. Chelsea, next slide. Yes, I think one up. Well, just to give you the highlights, education is facing critical problems, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. And these problems are related to teacher effectiveness, classroom management, data management, leadership, and other aspects. In order to manage this, to address this kind of problems, GP and IDRC, along with other partners, have been trying to support countries in different ways. One of which is they established the KIX hub recently, one of which is our KIX hub, KIX Africa 19 hub. Next. Well, next, Chelsea. Next slide. Yeah. So with regard to the purpose of this assessment, the main objective of the assessment is to provide up-to-date information of the major trends in data, evidence, and issues impacting the education needs of countries in line with all 6 thematic areas. And the specific objectives are: 1, to examine and compile relevant research, evaluations, innovations, and best practices to generate priorities and areas of focus for the regional hub. Second, to identify shared regional policy challenges that are aligned with the literature, expert opinions, especially key national education policymakers and stakeholders. Next. The third objective is to map out all the critical education sector stakeholders along with 6 KIX teams and other emerging themes within the 19 member countries to undertake an in-depth assessment of country institutional capacity needs and gaps for the development of tailored DCP capacity building assessment frameworks. And finally, to generate an evidence-informed, high-quality report with country fact sheets for use and discussion at regional technical consultation workshops for DCPs to validate the selected country priorities. Next. Next slide. In terms of scope, the focus of this assessment is assessing data from the 19 countries, or scanning the situation of education in the 19 countries. And the focus of the assessment will be on 3 levels of education. The first one is pre-primary education, second one, primary education, and the third one is the secondary education. So the assessment will focus on the 6 thematic areas. Next. Next slide. Yeah, now I will go to the methodology part. Next slide. Well, the first part of the methodology is design, data source and tools. We have used the mixed approach, both qualitative and quantitative, mainly qualitative one. It is leaned towards that one. And for this, we fetch data from two sources, primary and secondary sources. And we used three types of data gathering tools. Actually, we plan to use more than that, but due to time limitation, we restricted ourselves to these three only. One is desk review, second one is survey questionnaire, and the third one is workshop method, which is this kind of workshop. We validated tools as well as, and we are now validating the report. Next. Next slide. Yeah, good. Well, the secondary data sources emanated from desk reviews of essential documents. We reviewed latest planning and sector analysis documents of the countries, all the countries, the 6 KIX thematic area discussion papers, and we also reviewed the earlier rapid assessment report. And we have also reviewed some GP specific country level education evaluations. And we also consulted different types of research outputs from open sources. So next. With regard to the structuring of the tools, we have developed 7 survey tools, 7 of them. One of them is a tool devoted to education, policy, planning, and strategy. The second one is on teaching and learning, as well as learning assessment. The third one is early childhood care and education. The fourth tool is devoted to gender equality in education. Next slide. The fifth one is a tool devoted to equity and inclusivity in education. And the sixth one is education data management system. And the seventh one is the combined thematic area survey given to the legs, who are the key stakeholders of the education in each country. Next. In this, initially we plan to involve different types of stakeholders on the basis of purposive sampling and judgmental sampling. For the first tool, that is tool 1, it is about planning, policy, and strategy. So the ideal people for this will be the MO planning members, including head and experts, M&D specialists, and others. This is for tool 1. For tool 2, relevant people will be the curriculum experts as well as heads, the teaching learning process, special teacher development, and other heads and experts, inspection or supervision directors or heads, learning assessment heads and experts, school improvement heads, education reform heads, and senior supervisors. That is for tool 2, which involves the teaching and learning as well as learning assessment. The third tool is on pre-primary education, that is early childhood care and education. So the possible people we chose are MOE curriculum heads, teaching and learning heads, pre-primary education heads and the senior experts, inspection supervision heads, learning assessment heads, school improvement heads, education reform heads, and senior supervisors, both at central as well as regional level or provincial level. For the fourth one, that is for equity, rather gender equality, we included gender department head and senior experts, apart from the tool 3 respondents. For tool 5, that is for equity, we included special needs education head and senior experts, at least 2, and education reforms, and the most relevant area, depending on the choice or the interest of the KIX focal person in each ministry. The sixth tool is about data management. So we included planning heads and senior experts, M&E head and senior experts, education statistics and information head and senior experts, education reform heads, and national statistical agency or commission focal persons, if there are any. The seventh tool is for the LEGS, DCP education partners, LEGS, bilateral funding agencies, multilateral donors, NGOs, and others. Next slide. The survey was administered using Google Form platform, which was designed by the UNESCO Dakar in collaboration with Chelsea. We are very grateful to the person who devoted his time for this purpose. Workshop method, this one, and data analysis methods, we used descriptive statistics like counts, frequency counts, as well as percentages. And we also applied thematic analysis or content analysis for qualitative data. Next slide. The key findings. Next slide. Well, in terms of the response we obtained from our prospective participants, for the tool 1, we have got 15 responses which are used properly, and the countries that respond for this one include Malawi, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Kenya, Lesotho, Liberia, Ethiopia, Uganda, South Sudan, Rwanda, Tanzania, mainland and Zanzibar, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. For the teaching and learning, as well as learning assessment, 14 responses were obtained, and the countries are this: Uganda, the Gambia, Kenya, Nigeria, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Malawi, and Zambia. For early childhood care and education, we have got 16 responses. For gender equality questionnaire, we have got 9 responses. For equity and inclusive education questionnaire, we got 10 responses. For education data management system, we got 12 responses. And for the last overall thematic area assessment from LEGS, we got 28 responses. So the countries, from this, we can see that almost all countries, we got same response from all countries, although there is a disparity in terms of the thematic areas response rate. Next. The key findings. Overall, we structured the report. By the way, the report will be finalized very soon and sent to you as soon as possible. And it will also be uploaded into the Hub's website. You can see it in detail later on. But we have put the following into the report. One, the status of basic education policy, planning, and strategy for each country, and the 6 GP thematic areas have been reported, assessed and reported. And we also identified the best practices and innovations against each of the thematic areas, as well as the policies, planning, and strategy. We have got very big lists, and we cannot present this one, but you can find it from the report. We have also key challenges against each thematic area and others identified. That is also a big list. We have identified top priorities for immediate attention and possible intervention design. We will present this in the next slides. And we recommended actions to highlight the interventions, the possible interventions to be designed. Next slide. Well, the first among the thematic areas we assessed is the early childhood care and education. First, coverage and quality. We summarized, although we have seen it country by country, from the respondents, about 28 of them, the coverage of pre-primary education was found to be low for 50% of respondents, moderate for 32.1% of respondents, and high for about 17% for about 18% of the respondents. From this, we can learn that pre-primary education coverage is still something that has to go a long way. In terms of quality of pre-primary education, about 64.3% of the respondents said it's low. It's almost poor quality. And about 32.1% said it's moderate, and only 3.6% said high. So in this regard, again, there has to be something to be done by each country in order to improve the quality of the early childhood care and education process. Next slide. What are the top priorities as far as this sector is concerned? The top priorities as suggested by the respondents are the following. One, there has to be relevant and competency-based curriculum designed. Some countries have already designed, but many countries have not yet designed. There are curricula, but they are not competency-based or relevant to the level. Second, quality of materials must be improved significantly. Quality of infrastructure, they need to be very much high level. There is a lot to be done in this respect. Quality of teachers and caregivers, there must be some capacity building training for the ECC caretakers and teachers. Increasing access for under 5 must be there. In some countries, there is a policy which made ECC as a compulsory. That's very, very encouraging. We got one country which did that. So I think a lot has to be done in other countries in order to improve the access. Promoting public-private partnership for ECC is very important. That is encouraged. In most countries, this sector is mainly run by private investors, but public, the two have to create some kind of partnership in order to support each other. The involvement of multiple sectors is recommended to be highly essential. Next slide. The second thematic area is gender equality in education. In terms of gender, we asked about whether the education policy and plan are gender responsive or not. From this, we have got among the respondents, about 44.4% said it is gender responsive. They are gender responsive, both policy and plan. But significant number of them, we can say majority of them said they are not gender responsive. Next, we asked the extent of independence and activeness of the gender unit at MOE. Significant number of, considerable number of the respondents said, about 66.7% said the gender unit is less active and less independent. But only 33.3% said it's active and independent. And the other, we asked also, is there any policy? Is there any policy for readmission of girls in the country? And about 66.7% say yes, and about 33.3% say no. Sorry, my battery has gone down. Sorry. So the next slide. Let's see, next slide. Next slide.
Yes, we're on key priorities to ensure gender equality.
Okay, I think I'm aborted, I guess. Let me check. Okay, key priority, thank you. So with regard to key priorities to ensure gender equality in education, we have seen the first, we have identified the list of priorities suggested by the respondents. The first is, among this, reduction of school-based gender violence. About 68% of the respondents chose this one is the topmost priority. The second priority is implementing a multi-sectoral approach to ensure gender equality in education. Different actors must come together, and there has to be a kind of board created from different departments, ministries or agencies. And the third one is creating a gender responsive education sector plan. That's it's not creating gender responsive plan in each of the ministries is highly expected, and that has to be the third priority. The fourth priority is implementation of gender responsive curriculum. And there are also others which are identified here. So we will send you and you will have a look at them. So next slide. Next slide.
Maybe Chelsea is experiencing a connection problem. Chelsea, are you there?
I don't know. Okay.
I'm here. We're on leaving no one in education. Correct?
We are, you display 3.7, which is already key priorities.
You want 3.8. I'm on 3.8.
Yeah.
Again?
Yes. Yeah. Oh.
Okay, we should be on 3.8 now.
It's not coming yet. Okay, sorry. Okay, what is better? I'm not observing. Sure. Chelsea, are you displaying it?
Yes, I'm doing it.
It's not coming, huh? Okay. David, are we looking at it?
No, we have 3.7. We still have 3.7.
3.7, yeah.
Dr. Ted, do you have his presentation with you?
Yes, I have.
So why
Yeah,
don't
so
you
maybe you can display it by yourself.
Shall I open share? Share, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, yes.
Okay, I will go. Are you looking at it?
Not yet.
Not yet,
But
yeah.
it's fine. It's fine now. We are looking at it.
Okay, so let me go to there. Okay, here you are, yeah? So living, that's, are you looking at it now?
Yes.
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 Good. Thank you. So the eighth important point is leaving no one behind in education. That is equity and the inclusiveness in education. We have, among all the data we collected, I chose this one to be displayed for you because it's very important. Well, what are the kind of disparities which are observed in education sector in each of the countries? Sex is one. About 53.6% of the respondents said there is disparity due to sex in getting access to to enrollment or any other kind of education-related services. Second one is economic status. People are neglected from getting the opportunity because of their economic background, poorness. That is seconded by 85.7% of people. Ethnicity is another one, relatively small, about 39%, neglecting the minorities. Location of residence, disfavoring rural residents or those who are residing in remote locations. That is relatively high, which is 89.3% approval. Students with special needs or disabilities is a major one, which is approved by 96.4% of the respondents. The other is, what are the top priorities for equity and inclusion in education? The top priorities, the first one is increasing access and completion rate of the special groups, which is the bigger one. The second one is improving the quality of education, especially inclusive education, in terms of providing the necessary resources, materials, and others. And the third one is the reducing dropout rates. Those physically impaired, for example, visually impaired people, or physically challenged people, or due to different reasons, special needs education people are dropping out of school early because of the challenges they are facing. So these are some of the things. So the priorities of each of the countries, as far as they are dealing with this special needs or the equity and inclusive education, need to be these ones. They have to focus on these ones. The other point is the extent of overall achievement of students in each of the countries at primary and secondary level. About 14, with regard to primary, about 14.3% of the respondents say students are achieving high. About 39.3% say they are achieving at medium level overall. But the great majority of say, about 42.9%, their achievement is low. Some people don't have any opinion. When it comes to secondary, it's more or less, except the high and the medium change. The high achievers, they achieve high, only 3.6% say students achieve high. But majority of them say, almost 50%, yes, say it's medium. And again, 42.9% say they achieve very low or low. The key challenge of the teaching learning process in this assessment, we found it to be surprisingly, the topmost challenge of the teaching learning process is poor instructional leadership and teacher support, absence of teacher support by education managers. The second challenge is scarcity and poor quality of educational materials. The third one, two components, two factors came together. The first one is low teacher competence. And the other one is low student motivation. And the other second in the ranking is language instruction barrier. In many of the schools, maybe mother tongues are used. On top of that, English language or French or other languages are used, but these are not properly mastered by teachers as well as students. That's very difficult. That's causing some difficulties on learning. The other one is key challenge related to teachers. We have identified some key challenges. These are listed in this one. The first key challenge is low wage given to teachers. Due to low wage, teachers are not motivated and they are not contented to provide service to their students. The second one is related to the lack of pedagogical mastery of teachers. The third one is lack of continuous professional development. And the fourth one is teacher shortage in selected subregions and subjects. Especially science teachers are lacking in many of the countries. And the others are outlined like that. So in any case, we have identified about 10 important factors in relation to teachers. The other is in relation to students. We have also identified more than 13 factors. And the first among this is poor instruction and language mastery. Language competence problem is one. And the second one is family burden, especially the students engaging themselves in household chores during non-school hours. And the third one is distance from home to school. That's also causing their learning problem. And the fourth one is loss of interest in education due to gloomy employment prospect in the country. By saying that if those who are educated earlier or seniors are not getting, why should we suffer? This kind of mentality is being developed on the part of students. So that is demotivating them. And there are other factors as well. So we identified this, and these are. Then the other important thing is the top priorities of learning assessment. The top priorities of the learning assessment. The first top utilizing assessment results for planning and monitoring purpose. schools or education
Dr.
systems
Thiele.
need to use. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but you have only 2 minutes left, please.
Thank you. Okay. So I'll rush. So utilizing the assessment results for planning and monitoring purposes is #1 priority as far as learning assessment is concerned. The second one comes providing formative evaluations or feedbacks to the students. And the third one is strengthening national level assessment systems in the countries. And the fourth one is reducing achievement gaps in marginalized student populations. So these are the things. And the sixth thematic area is data management challenge in education, as you know. Well, we asked many questions, but one of the important things, the important response we got is, how do the countries collect data, especially the ministries? Manually, about 25% of the respondents say the countries collect data manually. Only one country, Somalia, said electronically, and the remaining said about 67% dual methods, both electronically and manually. And we asked the extent of adequacy of data collected by EMIS, and about 35.7% said adequate, and majority of them said somewhat adequate, about 46.4%, not adequate at all, 14.3%. And at what level is EMIS data collected used for decision-making, planning and decision-making purpose? At one level, that is at central level, ministry level only. At two levels, both ministry and regional, provincial level. And at three levels, both at school, provincial and central level. Only 25% said like that. And majority of them said only the ministry is using the data collected. And the level of client satisfaction with the EMIS data in terms of quality and timeliness of data, majority of them said they are somewhat satisfied only, 46.4%. And about 25% said they are dissatisfied, somewhat dissatisfied. And 17.9% said satisfied, not satisfied at all. And only 7% said very satisfied with the data. That is the key thing. The purpose of the whole will come, about the limitation of the existing EMIS first, sorry. We have identified the possible limitations of EMIS data. The first limitation, which comes out as the first one, is inadequately considered for internal planning or decision-making purpose. The second inadequacy occurs in limited capacity to use EMIS data. And the third one is schools do not receive feedback based on findings of the statistical report. And this is the major aspect of this assessment, ranking the 6 thematic areas in terms of country demands based on thorough situational analysis. So that is, we have seen this also during the rapid assessment. I will present that one in the next slide. But for this assessment, the topmost priority is given to teaching and learning, more than 57%. The other one is promoting early childhood education, 32.14%. The third one is two things came in a tie: learning assessment, 25%, and equity and inclusivity, 25% each. And the fourth one, rather the fifth one, is data management challenge. And the final one, the sixth one, is gender equality in education. During the rapid assessment, last time we presented this one to you, if you remember.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Tile. If you could please try to wrap up in the next minute. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. So that is teaching and learning came out as the first one at that time again. And learning assessment came out as the second. Inclusivity came out as the third. Data management challenge came out as the fourth. And early childhood came at the fifth, and gender equality at the sixth. So these are the findings. Therefore, as one important reason why we conducted these studies, IDRC is going to launch a regional call for research, and it wants to base the call on the basis of priorities selected. Therefore, we recommended as the hub, and which is subject to your approval, 2 tranches must be introduced. The first one is focusing on improving the teaching and learning effectiveness. Second one is promoting pre-primary education. The third one is creating a well-functioning learning assessment system. The second tranche, depending on the resource availability and commitment, comes promoting equity and inclusivity education, strengthening EMIS, and promoting gender equality in education. So these are the points I have. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chelsea. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tile, for the presentation. If I could ask you to just go back to that last slide with the 2 tranche that you've recommended. We'd like to try to do a quick poll with all of the participants to gauge your agreement or disagreement with the recommended priorities. So I'm going to pull up a quick poll for you, which you should be able to see very shortly in the chat box. And once it's on your screen, you'll be able to choose yes, no, or somewhat. And this will help us to determine your feedback and also give us some points for discussion. So let's see if we can launch this. Okay, so if we go into the meeting chat, there should be a form. Is anyone able to see the form? Dr. Tile, can you see the form?
Yes, it's there. We can see it. Thank you.
Okay. So if you can choose your response, yes, no, or somewhat.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mabor, go ahead, please.
The internet I'm connected to today is very, very weak, and I could not even see the page you are talking about. So I don't know whether I'm going to get what maybe it's going to be submitted to the account. Cannot see anything. Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and read it out for everyone in case some people can't see. So Dr. Tile, in his presentation, he recommended priorities for IDRC's regional call. In the first...
I was interested at priorities because one of the other priority, Department of Gender, they have not responded on what I gave them to fill. So I went to them this morning and I got them that they have not responded on that. And I think they have not got it well. Yeah. So, but you can still respond maybe later.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't hear the very last thing you said there. I apologize. I think the connection isn't very clear. But
Yeah, Chelsea, and another issue, I think that many participants are having issues to submit their answer, even if they choose the answer. Now submitting is something is not working. I think that there is something wrong. Yeah.
okay.
Because in the chat box, many participants cannot submit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with the polling technology, it may not be possible for all of us. So perhaps what we can do instead is ask for any comments in the chat box, yes or no, whether you agree with the priorities that Dr. Tile outlined. In the first tranche, we have improving teaching and learning effectiveness, promoting pre-primary education, creating a well-functioning learning assessment system. And then in the second tranche, we have promoting equity and inclusivity in education, strengthening EMIS, and promoting gender equality in education. So perhaps instead of using the poll option, we can just respond in the chat whether you agree with these priorities, or if not, please go ahead and share your comments with us.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
I came in?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Getachew from Ethiopia.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Trai, for your presentation. I do have some concern. Before finalize the document, I think it's better to share the member countries, the draft one, and it's better to respond our comments before finalized this document. I suggest this.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Getachew, yes, we can hear you. Point well noted. Of course, we agree that the document will be shared, and then you will have opportunity to provide as well your comment. So the point is well noted.
Okay, thank you.
So Chelsea, I don't know how we proceed. Maybe the time that the colleagues continue to answer about the polling question on the chat box, maybe we can open up the question and answer session. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. Thank you, BFIT.
Okay. So, dear colleagues, Dr. Tilai, thank you very much for the presentation, the very insightful presentation, giving us the situation, the findings that are coming from the online survey questionnaire. So maybe I'm sure that colleagues online have a number of questions. There are already, let's say, 2 to 3 questions on the chat box, but I think that it's time to open up maybe a few moments that we can discuss a bit about the funding. So we have 2 questions for the moment. One from Said. I will give him the floor to come in. I think it is about taking into account the caretakers and the parents in the ECE analysis. Mr. Said, can you come in?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you to Doc for his his presentation. I was considering he had some people in the third point there for ECE. Caretakers and parents are targets when it comes to ECE, the beneficiary to take care of them or whatever. So when you talk about the people you pointed out there, I didn't see the parents and caregivers involved. Why? Thank you. Over.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe we will take a round of 3 to 4 questions, and then we will give opportunity to Dr. Tilai to come in now. So the second question, I think, is coming from Amidou. I think it's more about a comment is regarding the comparison of the result regarding the learning the learning result, but also the learning assessment. So, Mr. Amadou, please, you have the floor for your question.
Hi, Befit. Hi, everyone. I think you have answered my question in the chat. So it was just making sure that you reconcile the perception of the respondents and the results of learning assessment tests conducted in the countries. I think it's very important to make the distinction instead of relying only on the perceptions. So that was my question. And I think you replied to the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Amidou. Now, I would like to open up again the floor. Do we have someone that want to raise any question, comment, suggestion beyond the suggestion given by our colleagues that we need to share at some point the document? Yes, who is it? You can go in. You can go. You can come in. Argao, can you mute your mic? Okay, done. So, colleagues, do we have some other questions, additional questions?
Hello, I have a question, please. My name is Clarice from Nigeria.
Okay, go ahead, Clarice.
All right, thank you. The presentation was well made, but I want to ask, you know, we have a trench 1 and trench 2. Is it possible, according to the country's priorities, assuming that some of our country's priorities appeared in trench 2, is it possible for the KIX hub to meet up my country's priority in trench 2 instead of trench 1? I mean, can it be switched over, or the hub is going to follow it the way it is? So the all in the trench 1 is for every country, for the 19 countries involved. And when we are through with that, everybody will go to trench 2. It's just a question and clarification. What do we do, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clarice, for that interesting question. I know that we have our colleague also, Joy, that is online. He can help us on particularly this question as well as Amidou, but we will come on that. Any other question? Okay, I see that we don't have any other question. Maybe I will also take the opportunity to share that I was a bit surprised that for ECE particularly, from what we know a bit, financing issue is one of the part of the problem. But it appears a bit strange that countries do not raise the problem of financing, knowing that if you look at what is allocated to ECE, particularly the primary education in education budget, sometimes this is the very, very, very lowest part, if I don't want to say at least 0%. So I'm a bit concerned, and maybe Dr. Tilai, I don't know if at least one country raised that particular problem of financing for ECE. So, Dr. Tilai, over to you. And then after that, we can be able to comment and also to provide. Okay, I see that Amidou have some additional question. Amidou, do you have the floor?
Yeah, this is a follow-up to your question, Befit. There is another dimension also of ECCE in African countries. It's governance. Right now, the governance is fragmented across different ministries in most African governments. So I don't know whether that issue was mentioned, because the issue of funding or financing actually comes from that particular fragmentation of ECE across different ministries. So if you see what the government, what the Ministry of Education covers, it does not include both the private and also the ECE provided by other sector ministries.
Okay, thank you very much, Amidou, for the question. This is well noted. So, Dr. Tilai, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Befit. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for raising very interesting questions. Well, I take the Getacheo's comment outrightly, so we will send it as much before we finalize it to each of the countries to comment on it. Regarding the Said's question, caretaker and teacher, well, initially, you know, we were interested to involve as many people, as many stakeholders as possible to respond to the questionnaires. That's why in our sample selection, we gave total jurisdiction to the country focal persons and the ministries to identify who are the right people to respond to these questions. But due to the time scarcity of time, limited time we had during the data collection, only 15 days we gave time. Due to that, we could not involve. And you can also imagine how this COVID is also affecting our communications throughout the world. So that is also a deterrent factor. So as a result of which we could not involve the caretakers and parents. I wish we had invited them to participate in this kind of survey, but due to limited time we had, we could not do that one. I think in the future we will do this. By the way, we have got a lot of information or data, and we will be producing different articles from time to time on the basis of this one. We may also seek for additional data from relevant stakeholders as time goes on. The second question is comparing the learning assessment, comparing the opinions of people who participated and the actual results which come as a result of assessment or examination or tests. We have made distinction, but this is just we asked them in order to get some impression how they feel about the achievement of students, despite all the actual measures we are getting from different exams, like national exams, international exams, regional exams. I know many countries are involved in this one. We have reviewed documents of each of the countries, and we will incorporate into the report the actual results from the document reviews, and by giving this one as opinion. The Clarice question is partly Joy may come into it, but for me we have suggested the tranches based on the overall the aggregate average data we got from the analysis. Honestly speaking, number one priority is priority for each of the countries participated in this study. That is the teaching learning process. The variation occurs on second, third, and others. Then we have chosen on the basis of the average aggregate data we got from the participants. I don't know, maybe individual country-based intervention design is allowed or not. I think Joy may have to say something on this one. By reflecting the interests of IDRC and GPE. So this is what I can say. Regarding the budget, the benefits and Fian's question. Yeah, by the way, we have a separate question whether the education, the Ministry of Education and the government is allocating adequate budget for each level, pre-primary, primary, and secondary. And the answer is, as you can expect, it's low. In fact, there is what's called the bias leaning towards the higher education in each of the countries by ignoring the role of basic education. So a lot of budget, maybe more than 40–60% of budget is allocated for higher education compared to other levels, basic education level. So that is a problem. It is reflected in other assessments, other questions. There is an item exclusively devoted to this one. We have got that one. We will analyze it and put it in the report. And the issue of fragmentation of the pre-primary education management. Yeah, we have got, by the way, some countries are annexing pre-primary education with existing primary education. Some are creating separate community-based low-cost centers. And some, I know UNICEF has introduced very innovative approaches like peer-to-peer learning, child-to-child learning, and group learning, these kind of things, and which are made at village level. So there are different modalities which are organized in order to open up access for pre-primary age groups. So what is recommended by most of the respondents is there has to be well-organized system created. The infrastructure needs to be well organized, and the quality of the trainers and caretakers must be up to standard. There must be continuous professional development given to them. Even there is the suggestion, the recommendation given by one of the countries, there has to be a fully dedicated institute which is training the pre-primary teachers and caretakers. And continuous professional development needs to be given to this one. These are the reflections I have for this round. Back to you, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tilai, for these answers to the question asked. Maybe I would like to call Joy, particularly on the question of our colleague from Nigeria. Joy, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Befit. So thank you, Clarice, for your question. I just want to say that these are very important findings, and the recommendations from this study are going to be taken seriously. And while we KIX may not be in a position to respond to all the priorities because of availability of funding, we are also going to aim to strike a balance so that we respond to the most immediate priorities. But also just to note that these findings are going to help the hub in creating a broader engagement plan. And no doubt that all the 19 member states are going to participate in inter-country exchanges in one way or another. And from my experience with other hubs, they've indicated that this is just a starting point, and that moving ahead, we are going to use the findings from this relatively rapid review to further refine the issues that have been identified in a participatory way as we continue engaging in further knowledge sharing within the member country states. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Joy. I would like to take the opportunity of particularly this question also to raise maybe a point. During the presentation, Dr. Tilai, we can see that the learning assessment and the equity and the inclusivity all gain, let's say, 25%. favorable opinion, I mean priority. Why are we just putting more emphasis on learning assessment in tranche 1, and then we just remove equity and inclusivity, and then we put it in tranche 2? Is it do we have any specific reason for that? Over. Dr. Tilai?
I got it. Yes. In fact, it is because of the two came up as a tie. They tied up learning assessment and inclusive education. But due to the resource constraints, we thought, well, between the two, we had to choose one of them so that 3-3 will be divided into 2 groups. So we just took that one for the reason that teaching and learning and assessment are closely associated. They must go together. As we try to tackle one problem, which is the teaching learning process, assessment may come with it, and then as we go together, maybe with limited resource, we can tackle the two together. That's why. That's the only reason. Otherwise, depending on the country's interest, we can even reverse the situation, the decision. Or we can take 4 of them together as one tranche and 2 of them as the second tranche. That's possible. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tilai, for the clarification. I believe that from my side, I think that it should be very interesting that we discuss the possibility of having the 4 thematic areas, meaning that we also take into account the equity and the inclusivity issues, if possible, on the first tranche. But I think that this is something we may have at certain point to discuss a bit more about it, and then to see how we can sort this out. Dear colleagues, I would like to open up another round of questions, but at the same time, I'm looking to the watch, and then I'm seeing that the time is running. So unless that someone have a specific question, we may want to move ahead to the next item of the agenda, but I just give the opportunity of 2 minutes if someone have an additional question so that we can take this into account. I don't see any hand raised, so it means that we are all good. So, dear colleagues, Dr. Tilai, thank you again very much for the presentation and the answers that have been provided and the very great discussion. We understood that it will be very important to share the document so that our partners, our participants, our country focal point can have opportunity to provide additional comments, suggestions, and we all know that participant comments and suggestions are very important for us. So, dear colleagues, dear participants, do send any comment and suggestion you may have to the Hub Secretary so that this can help us to move to the finalization of the report and to the next step. So this being said, I would like to move to the next item of the agenda, who is about the final remark and way forward from IDRC. Maybe I think this is from Joy. Joy, please, you have the floor. And let us all thanks again very much for Dr. Tilai and the team for the great job done, and then the very great finding that we have from this scanning study. Over.
Thank you, Bifit. Let me start by echoing your comments, Bifit, to the Hub 19 team led by Dr. Tilai for working hard and round the clock to make sure that this process has been completed and that the draft report is out, and also organizing this meeting. This is highly appreciated. I also want to thank the Hub 19 member countries and partners for their participation in the validation, in the exercise, in the in-depth exercise, but also in this validation meeting. We appreciate your active participation, your comments, your feedback. I think this is going to make the report rich and useful as we continue to engage in the hub. Going forward, as mentioned by Dr. Tilai, I think that the team is going to prioritize finalizing the report and publicly sharing it. I don't know if Chelsea had mentioned earlier that we now have the Hub 19 KIX website. Perhaps she can share the link. It will be important for the members to be checking on the website just to see what the hub is onto, what activities are upcoming, your participation, any announcements, and anything that the hub is undertaking at any period. So I think please feel free to log into the website. I think it will be a very important source of information as we continue to engage and to participate in the hub. So as earlier mentioned, is the findings from this study will be very useful in guiding the hub to employ different strategies in engaging countries in discussions around their priorities across the various thematic areas. We do appreciate the recommendations. We appreciate your input. And we hope that going forward, we are going to even have a wider engagement per country to ensure that the hub will support yield results at country levels. And on that note, also let me take this opportunity to remind all the focal points, all the country focal points in the meeting today about the nomination of the 5 national representatives. If you have not sent in the nomination, kindly do so as the hub moves into deeper engagements and perhaps even smaller engagements at country level. The last thing I would like to mention is that at IDRC GPE KIX, we are going to launch a regional call for proposals end of this month. So partners on this call, please be on the lookout for this call for proposals. And just to reiterate that this call for proposals will be informed and has been informed by the findings from this in-depth mapping exercise conducted by the hub. And we hope that through this we can respond to the demands in the region in a bid to strengthen education systems in our region. So with those brief remarks, I want to thank all of you, and we look forward to your continued participation in the hub as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Joy, for your words. That said, I would like to invite now Jaji for the concluding remark. Jaji, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Bifith. Thank you very much, colleagues. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to stand on the existing good remarks that have been given by Joy and Bifith and the rest of the colleagues to Dr. Tilaya and the team. You're doing a fantastic job. We are the African Union side are actually pleased with the direction and progress that has been made so far on this initiative. I would like to also thank our partners, our member countries, for participating in this meeting and for giving us valuable comments to better enhance our delivery and developing a proper strategic direction for this initiative. Before I hand over to BFIT, I would just like to remark and also to urge the IDRC to look into what was raised regarding the possibility of having the tranches, having 2 more tranches within the first tranche, or whether we actually need any first and second tranche. In fact, the interesting question there would be that what then happens to the countries that the issues that are in the first tranche are not a priority to them. So this is it's one of the points that I noted. Otherwise, thank you very much. It was a good meeting. It was an eye-opening meeting. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Tilai, for the insightful analysis of the data that you have collected. And also, if you notice in the chat, there were people raising or someone raising the issue of probably strengthening our data collection processes, by including maybe offline data collection methods next time. Probably we could get better replies or more replies from countries to better enhance our plans within the hub. Thank you very much. As usual, like I always say, we're very much committed to this process, and we would be willing to give or provide any kind of support that is required from our end. So thank you very much. Over to you, Bifith.
Okay, thank you very much, Jaji. Thank you for all the colleagues. Now it is 4:24 p.m. Ethiopia, Nairobi time. So I would like to end the meeting by wishing all of you a good evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. Over. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bifith.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye
everyone.
bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.